Welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast, where you can share your story judgment-free. We are here to guide you down the road to redemption and restoration. Remember, healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. Now, here are your hosts, Anthony and Melissa.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. I am your host, Anthony, and tonight I am guessing that you stumbled upon this podcast because you saw some sort of an ad or a TikTok video, and you said, hey, I'm going to stop by and check this out. Don't worry, we're going to spend the first few minutes of this podcast just explaining who we are, what we're about, and then you can make an educated decision on whether you want to stay and check this out. But I'm guessing if you did find us, there's something about what we're going to do here that might resonate with you. So I just humbly ask that you stick around and find out what we're about. So the Grace for the Unlovable podcast exists to be a safe place for people who have, well, frankly, they've just blown it. They've made horrible decisions. They found themselves in sin. They're keeping a secret. Anything that just weighs us down and makes us feel unlovable. Mm-hmm. We don't actually really believe that anybody truly is unlovable, but it can feel that way. And definitely at times, depending on what we've done, society would deem us unlovable or judge us as unlovable. And so we want this podcast to be sacred ground. We want it to be a place where you could call in anonymously, and we're going to always keep it anonymous. Well, we shouldn't say always. Some people might want to take a big risk, but for the most part, we're going to try to keep this anonymous so people can just have a place where they can get this out and maybe find the road to redemption and restoration. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to do here. Now, I'm going to just start out by saying this. What qualifies me, Anthony Corelli, to host a podcast like this? Well, I'd love to tell you that it's because I am a former therapist and pastor who has helped thousands of people deal with multitudes of different types of problems. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think that's important to this podcast, to be honest. I think what qualifies me is I'm a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, a thief, a betrayer, an offender, an imposter. I mean, basically everything that would make me anything but qualified to host a podcast like this. And definitely anything I've done would probably rule me out of being any sort of a hypocrite, because there's probably not too many things you could call in that between Melissa and I, we haven't done or experienced ourselves. And so I would just put it like this. How can I judge you if I've probably been where you've been? So yes, I have the skills and qualifications and backgrounds of somebody who might be able to help you, but we're not going to approach it like that. We're going to approach it from real people who just want to maybe guide you out of the hell that you're in. I've always said that as a minister and as a therapist, I don't mind going to the gates of hell to pull you back out, because I've been there and I know the way. And when I say I've been there, most of the time I took myself there. So that's what would qualify me, Anthony Corelli, to be the host of this podcast. What about you, Melissa Corelli?
Well, hi, I'm Melissa Corelli. I'm your co-host. I would say for me, just life experience, like you said, and just trying to, help people. My background is in HR for over maybe 23 years. So dealing with all different types of situations, from people coming in late, people going through divorces, loss of a family member or loved one, having to be laid off, just all different types of things. And I, over my years in HR, I found that people find it very easily or comfortable talking to me about certain things. Like they wouldn't open up. What is the real problem here? Why are you falling asleep at work every day?
Sure.
Come to find out the spouse has a medical condition and takes medication, so she can't wake up to feed the baby. Just trying to be sympathetic or empathetic with other people and their feelings, and just try to be understanding. And we're all human. And I've made mistakes. Like you said, I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a thief. I've betrayed people. People have betrayed me. We've done it all, but just thankful that God has shown me grace and have shown me the right way to not be that person anymore.
I love it. I love it because it's real. And I would definitely validate that. Melissa and I have shared a lot of personal stuff together, and she is very easy to talk to. So if you're maybe somebody who works better with women, or somebody who would rather have the ear of a woman to tell your story, Melissa's right here next to me to help guide you, just like I am. So let's kind of do what I promised at the beginning, and we're going to break down kind of the details of this podcast. Now, what I want to say first is that if you were somebody who came over because you once upon a time listened to the Deliverance Project podcast, which was basically my first podcast, and Melissa came on board later, we did a lot of deliverance ministry stuff there. And I don't think that it's going to be out of the question that some of the stuff we do here on this podcast may be deliverance ministry oriented. And for those of you who are not Christian, what we mean by that is people who feel like they're in a spiritual warfare type situation. But we are not going to be that type of a podcast here. Now, if you are somebody who's come over from my other podcast, which is called the Struggle Series, where we talk about the books in the Struggle Series, the trilogy of books that I've written, and then we added another story down the road. But those 4 books are all available on the Struggle Series podcast. That podcast is still active, and we're doing some short stories there now. But you're definitely not going to get all the spooky stories on this podcast. So I just want to say up front, this is going to be probably drastically different. But if you're somebody who came over for the spooky stories, go back to the Struggle Series. Or if you want some deliverance stuff, I don't discourage you from going back and listening to all the seasons of the Deliverance Project, because it might enlighten you on some things there. And just write into us, and we'll give you that information here in a little bit. But we'll guide you to some other great podcasts, and that, we're doing what we were doing over there.
Exactly.
But this one's going to be different. I said at the beginning that we want this to be sacred ground. And I want you to think of a passage in the Bible. And if you're not Christian, just bear with me. There's this passage in the Bible where Moses has an encounter with God. And God tells him to take his shoes off because he's standing on sacred ground. Basically to center him, to say, like, you better have some reverence for this specific time and place in history, because this is where I am. This is where we will keep everything real, and it's sacred. And that's what we want this podcast to be. So I kind of want to put it like this. This is a podcast for people who have screwed up. I mean, you have sinned. You're carrying a bunch of shame. Maybe you don't like that word sin because you're not a religious person. That's fine. You've just made a big mistake, and it's affected your life and the lives of others. You've been ostracized by society because of that decision. Or maybe you've been ostracized by society for something you got blamed for that you didn't
do. Exactly.
Maybe you are ostracized because of something your parents did that was passed down through generations of shame. But there's just a part of your life that just has you feeling like you're unlovable. People that are very lonely, depressed would understand this, and they may even get used to it. Sometimes people have never experienced this, and now all of a sudden something happened, and here they are. All are welcome. If you basically consider yourself a pariah, like the Scarlet Letter, if you're not familiar with the story, just a brief rundown: a woman commits adultery, and society makes her wear an A on her clothing. So everybody in the whole town knows that she's the adulteress. If you're wearing a Scarlet Letter right now, this is for you. If you have a secret, that's the big one, maybe, that we'll find here, maybe not. But most people who have secrets, it's eating them alive. They say in AA, and I believe in this theory very strongly, secrets keep you sick.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you have
for so long.
Sure. So if you have a secret and you've never told anybody and you need to tell it, we want you to tell it here. And we'll change your name. We will disguise your voice if we have to, whatever you feel would keep you safe. This is where we want you to bring that judgment free.
Mm-hmm.
We will keep you anonymous. We want you to basically shed that unlovable title that you've given to yourself or society has given to you. We want you to feel free, to feel liberated. How will we do that? Well, we want you to write in. You can write us at gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com. That's gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com. Or you can call in. And what we would do there is you would start out by, of course, reaching out to us on that email address.
Mm-hmm.
We will work out a time and a place where we can have you call in. We send you a little link. You do it from your phone, and you can simply just be anonymous with us. This podcast will have no video. We just called it right up front. When we did the Deliverance Project, we basically tried to mostly be off camera, but there were some times where the guests that we had on, we just felt that it was going to be an on-camera type thing. This will never be that. Even if you want to be on screen, we're not going to do it because we want the anonymity to be the primary thing. So we will basically make you as anonymous as we can. I do have to say that there may be certain elements of your story that somebody may figure out who you are, but maybe at that point, it's more important for you to get it out than it is for you to be worried about that. But we would just want to start the conversation with you. So you can write in and just give us your story. We'll address it on the air. We'll reach back out to you and say, hey, we're going to put it on the air. Is there anything else you want us to do before we read it? But if you want to be on the air, we will do that too. And this, of course, is going to be this judgment-free environment. Now, let's make sure we clarify that, because I want you to think about what I'm going to say next very deeply. And you'll hear this in our disclaimer later on in the show, because we're going to have to put this disclaimer out there because I used to be a therapist and a minister. So you're going to hear it in a minute, but I want to say it here very clearly. If you are not remorseful, this is probably not the time to call into this podcast. And this is that sacred ground thing, right? Because if you just want to call in and tell a funny war story, I mean, maybe just call me and we'll just shoot the breeze. I don't know. We'll laugh about it because I'm not judging you. But what we don't want to do is make it to where it becomes something that you're not really ready to talk about, but it's just something that you feel you need to kind of humorously get out into the universe. That's not what this is. This is kind of a solemn thing. It's kind of a very serious thing. Not that we won't laugh and have a couple light moments during these calls and letters, but this is sacred. So that's where this judgment-free thing comes in. So you can imagine if last week's letter was about somebody who was abused, and then your next week we're taking somebody's call and they're joking and laughing about how they abuse somebody.
Oh no.
That's not safe. No. And so that's what we have to do, is keep this place safe. I'm just going to say it like, I don't know.
Say it.
I because you don't want to say like we're the only ones, but I don't really know of any other podcasts like this. And
I don't think so.
there may be, and hopefully what I do is I continue to maybe find like-minded people and we can help each other out in this space.
Exactly.
But sacred ground also, because there aren't very many places in the world that you can go and tell your story without feeling like you're being judged, that the people who are listening to you are specifically here to let you tell your story in the way you need to tell it.
I like it. I'm excited.
And you know, me too.
I'm kind of nervous, but I'm excited at the same time.
Of course, because we don't know what we're going to get. And, you know, I guess we have the benefit of editing if something just obscure, crazy happens, but I don't really want to do a lot of that. I just want people to be raw and real. Of course, don't confess to the fact that you're going to go murder 55 people, you know, but things you've done in the past or things you're worried about or working on, that's what we want you to kind of consider and bring it to us, and we can filter through that. Even before we put you on the air, we'll have a good conversation about how it would work, right? So if the shame and the guilt are overwhelming you, if you've been caught and you feel like everyone is turned on you, If you're in the middle of losing everything, or you've already lost everything and you feel hopeless, sometimes we just need a place like this to turn with our deepest regrets that will not cost us more than we've already endured. And that's like one of the most important things is like, if you have a secret, especially if it's big, especially if it came out, you'd be in trouble legally, relationally, whatever. The last thing you'd want to do is make the problem worse. And so we don't want this to be that. We believe here at the Grace for the Unlovable podcast that healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. We want to be that safe space. So again, just reach out to us at gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com. Now, a couple more clarifications. Non-Christians, let me just say this. This podcast, we're going to talk about Jesus a lot because we believe that grace comes from the healing work of Jesus Christ. Now, we are not going to be hyper-religious podcast. So I would say stick it out. You've probably heard Christians say that before, and then all of a sudden they start beating you over the head. We're going to talk about the Bible a little bit here in a minute, but we want you to see it maybe from a different light. Okay? So non-Christians, try us out. You're going to be surprised. Yes, I was a minister. I've joked about this before. I was the minister that was always in the elder's office. I was always in trouble because I hate religion. And when I use the word hate, it is a true hatred of religion. I love Jesus. I love the Bible. I love what Jesus had to say. And religion has bastardized that in such a way that most people who hate Christianity don't really hate Jesus. They just hate the religion that was supposed to, quote unquote, represent Jesus. And so see if we're different. Try us out, right? Now, Christians, you better beware. This is not a religious podcast. One of the people that I listen to and follow a lot is a man named Tullian Chivijian. He's the grandson of Billy Graham, and he's a rebel like us, right? He is not the typical pastor at all. He's blown it. I mean, he blew up his whole church, his whole marriage, his whole relationship, and talks freely about it. And so now he's back on his feet and he runs a different type of church. I would almost say that his church is doing what we're doing on this podcast. I agree. They entertain really all kinds of different rebels and different types of people that are, willing to be real and honest about themselves. And so we're going to be more like that. But Tullian says that the church has historically been gracious to the victims, but not the perpetrators. And I love that.
Oh, yeah.
So now let's do some clarification here. We are not saying that we are going to glorify any sort of behavior that there was some sort of a victim of that behavior. We don't really like the word victim. As Melissa and I were writing some of this stuff out, Melissa was like, take the word victim out, take the word victim out. Because we don't want you to feel like we're going to shame you. And there's so many connotations of the word perpetrator and victim. But I chose those words because Tullian says that, and it kind of sticks. Now, there are podcasts that are made for victims. And we are not saying that we are opposed to victims. That is not what we're saying. But we're saying the person who committed said offense may not have a place to go, whereas a victim might have several places to go. And rightfully so, right? Because if you hurt somebody, there's consequences. We don't care about what you did. We want you to get on the other side of it.
Exactly.
Like we say, redemption, restoration. That's what we're shooting for. So not a place to tell your war stories. This is for people who are repentant and want to change. So what we're going to do here real quick is we're going to read a quick disclaimer, and then we'll jump back into some Bible passages that might help further explain what we're about. Before we get to tonight's episode, let's hit you with a quick disclaimer. Although I practiced as a licensed therapist and an ordained minister, this podcast is not a substitute for clinical advice. This is not therapy. This podcast is for prayer and emotional support only. If you feel like you're going to harm yourself or others, please call 911 or reach out by text or phone to 988. This podcast is anonymous for a reason. We're not here to judge you or incriminate you. Please keep the names of anybody you've harmed out of your story. Oh, and if you're not remorseful, you're not ready for this podcast. Just reach out to us at a different time when you're ready to make some changes. Now, let's get ready for this episode of the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. If you have any questions about that disclaimer, some of you might go, what is that about? Just reach out to us again, gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
But just a brief overview. I was a therapist, licensed, right? The whole thing. I was a minister, counseled several zillion people.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that. We have to put a disclaimer because we don't want anybody saying, well, they gave us bad advice they told, that's not what we're about. This is not therapy. And so you just have to know that. It just has to be there just to clarify and for legality. You're going to hear it every week, so get used to it. Now I want to jump into some Bible passages that maybe Christians and the non-Christians have never really considered. And I start with one of kind of my life passages. And Melissa and I talk a lot about this stuff just in our lives because we've joked about this on other podcasts. When you meet somebody who's been a deliverance minister, who goes into people's homes and prays demons out of people, that's weird. It's a weird thing. So although Melissa was a Christian, she really had to get to know me, how I evolved, how I developed. So I grew up seeing demonic entities, had a very kind of rocky, I would even call it tragic childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I kind of came out of it by finding God. But I found God in a very religious church. And it was a decent church. I mean, I don't have anything to say about it. As a matter of fact, some of my family still goes there and they love it. Different pastor, different season, but it was very religious. And so much so that I was this long-haired 80s rocker kid, played in a rock band, and they wanted me to cut my hair before they would let me perform worship music on the stage.
Aww.
And so I left because that was religious. Like you can't have this long-haired rocker kid leading worship. Now you go to every Christian church on the planet. All the guitar players have tattoos or whatever. Yeah, long hair. But back then it was taboo. So I hated it. But as my life evolved, that was all I knew. So Christianity was religion to me. Mm-hmm. And then I made some big mistakes and I had to realize, am I going to go to hell? Like I was this Christian guy and I made these mistakes. The Bible has some weird passages about, like in Hebrews, like, well, if they know the truth and they keep sinning, like there's no place for them anymore in this Christian thing. Mm-hmm. At least that's what you think it says if you've been religiously taught, right? So I'm like, man, is there any grace for me? Am I done? Like, did I blow it so bad?
I'm only 20 something years old. I'm just getting started in life.
Yeah. And I'm already like out, right? And so I had to go back and kind of catch a new fire by really understanding what the Bible said about sin and about grace and about what these things were. And what I realized that, and some of you Christian people, this might where you turn it off, and that's probably good if you decide to. Salvation is given to you as a free gift. There's nothing you can do to earn it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to blow it. All of us blow it. And if you meet a Christian that tells you, well, you need to quit sinning, that's your problem. I wonder who tells them that when they're sinning. And if they tell you they don't sin, run. Run as far away from them as you can, as fast as you can. And so this first passage kind of explains that. It's Ephesians 2:8-9. And I'm reading from the English Standard Version. You can find this, variation of this in any translation that you have, NIV or King James or whatever. But it says, for by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not of your own doing. It is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that no one can boast. Now, I picked that passage because if you're afraid of the Christian thing, any Christian that you've met that doesn't approach what you're coming to them for with that, they are probably not the right person to talk to. And I don't want to be adversarial towards Christians. I've always been deemed that or labeled that. Again, I was always in elders meetings having fights because I said the word screwed from the stage and you're not supposed to cuss. And I'm like, you think that's cussing? I can show you some words. I grew up in the hood, like we use the F word like you use and. And so I hated that religion. And so when I read this, I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm saved through my faith. I am saved through my faith in God by putting my trust in Jesus and what he did on the cross. Because my salvation is not about anything I do. It's not by my works, because then I can boast. And then you watch these religious Christians and you're like, they boast. Well, when I used to be like you, but now we're not going to come at it that way.
No.
Example, if you call in and say, I can't quit drinking. And I have ruined my family. My wife's getting ready to leave. I'm not going to say, well, I haven't had a drink since April 23rd of 1997. That's religion. I'm going to say, yeah, I've been there. I've been there to where I had to look at my life and make a decision to quit. And I make the decision to quit every day. It gets better, but it is also something that you're going to have to wrestle. And then we can have an honest chat. Like when you're a drinker who drinks too much and you feel you have to quit because it's causing problems, and then you look across the aisle and you have a friend that can have one glass of wine every 6 months, and you're like, I hate that person, right? We want to have that type of conversation with you. And that's based in Ephesians right there. If I find this grace through some faith, it's not about me being perfect from that day forward. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, because you most definitely, but you work on the level of the mess you make now,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. And so, I still make mistakes probably every 17 or 18 minutes. Like for example, I have pretty big potty mouth at work, especially because we still have real jobs in real life. We're not professional podcasters. So our job is stressful. I say the F word a lot, and we're going to say it here. I mean, I'm not trying to be blaspheming the Lord here, and we are definitely not going to try to just be flagrant F words for no reason.
Yeah.
But if we're in the moment with a caller or with a letter, I'm going to say a bad word or two here and there. And if you judge me as that as a Christian, I guess technically you're right. We should tame our tongue like it says in James, but you should also tame your tongue about being self-righteous and pointing out everybody else's sin and not finding the plank in your own eye like it says in Matthew. Now, 2 Corinthians 12:9, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Now, God says his grace is sufficient for you in everything, not just in those little sins, as the Christians will call it, or not in just those little behaviors that the secular world says is okay, but these ones are the ones that are bad. His grace is sufficient for all of it, and it's made perfect in your weakness. A lot of times we need to call into a podcast like this because we have found out no matter how hard we try, we can't seem to figure this out. And it's because we're not being weak. We're being too powerful, trying to control it. Weakness doesn't mean a negative connotation here. I mean, there are times where weakness can be a bad thing, but this is not what it's saying. It's saying, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and I'm going to let this grace take over. So I will not boast all the more gladly, or I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses. So you're going to come here and you say, here's who I am, the raw stuff that I wouldn't tell anybody, the things that I'm afraid people are going to judge me for. And that is when God's power can rest upon you. That makes sense.
I like that.
Let's go to Romans 5:20. Now the law came to increase the trespass, but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more. Now this is for the religious Christians, because some of you non-Christians probably don't know what this is about. This is where, again, if some of you religious Christians have stuck around, this is probably where you're really going to get pissed off and turn us off. The law came for one reason. God gave us the law to show us that we're not good enough. It's like a mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't increase by having the law didn't make you sin more. What it's saying is by having the law, you realized how much you actually sin. It increases the level of sin in your own eyes when you can see it. But where sin increased, grace abounded all the more. The word there in Greek is actually the word hooper, where we would get super or hyper.
Mm-hmm.
So where sin increased, grace increased all the more. It super abounded. This is what we want you to find here.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of you Christians who still want to stick around, we're going to beat you up here, for this next one. You're probably going to wonder, like, where in the Bible does it say that? Shouldn't we be doing all the law? Romans 6:14 says, "For sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under the law, but under grace." See, a lot of Christians still believe that the law is the ruling governance of the land. But Jesus said, "I did not come to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill it."
Mm-hmm.
So what does this mean? This means that when Jesus died on the cross, was resurrected on the third day, he conquered sin, sickness, and death. And therefore, the law is not the governing body anymore. Grace is.
Mm-hmm.
The law is still there just to show you how much you need this grace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this podcast is about. So for non-Christians, this is where you have been rubbed the wrong way by Christians. See, if you could go, watch this. Let's get real, right? Imagine you're an adulteress, like the Scarlet Letter lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just a lady. I mean, I love those terms because we don't use them anymore.
Yeah.
You're some lady who cheated on her husband, and it's eaten you alive. And if you walked into most churches and you say, "I want to talk to somebody," and they had you meet with the pastor, would the pastor look at you with love and empathy and say, "I am so sorry. I don't know what series of circumstances led you to that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sorry that you're going through this. And I want you to know that there's grace that will cover that. And you have a road ahead of you because you and God, or you and yourself, or if you're non-Christian, whatever, you're going to have to work through this to figure out how you're going to move forward. And if that means you're going to confess this to your husband, if that means you're going to get divorced, whatever it means, God loves you." Now that sounds great, right?
Oh, yeah. It sounds great and easy.
I could tell you this with the straightest face. The reason I'm in trouble with the elders a lot is because I would have these battles with these senior pastors, I was a high level pastor, but these executive pastors that I worked for that would shame people, and it wasn't like, "You dirty whore," like it wasn't that kind of shame, but it was like, "Well, you came to the right place, because when you sin like that, you see what you've done? You've betrayed your husband. You've betrayed your children." And it's like, jackass, don't you know that she knows that?
Right. That's why she's there.
Exactly. So this is where we get into this grace law thing. What these preachers and these pastors and some of these Christian therapists even are doing, and even some non-Christian therapists, they're shaming you by telling you what you did wrong. You already know that. They're not showing you how to get out of that and how to get that kind of freedom that you need from that. And sometimes the freedom doesn't come right away, but just getting on the road to it is the place you need to be right now.
Oh, yeah. There is a process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's like years.
But to go somewhere where people will walk that process with you, that's awesome. To go somewhere where people are going to make you feel worse about what you already did, you're not going to go there. You're not going to keep going there. You might go 2 or 3 times, but if you feel worse when you leave, you're at the wrong place.
I saw a quick TikTok of this young lady. I mean, she was dressed like she probably came from the club the night before, but she just walked into the church in the middle of the service and just asked that she needed prayer, that she needs someone to talk to. Like she just lost. And instead of them, I mean, her hair was kind of all over the place, it's like she just kind of woke up and just needed to go and speak to someone. You can see the pain in her face, and they just opened their arms, and the ladies of the church just surrounded her, and they just prayed for her. The preacher stopped preaching, and they prayed for her right there at that moment.
Love it.
And she kind of didn't know what to do because she wasn't sure what to expect.
Yeah.
Because all the other ladies in there with their hats on and their suits, their dresses, and hair and makeup and everything's done. But they embraced her, and they all prayed with her right then. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, I speaking of being in trouble with the elders, this is what pops in my head. And I may have told this story somewhere before on one of the other podcasts, but one of the days I got drug into a Monday evening elders meeting because pastors are off on Monday, but that's when I would have to come on my day off and get my hand slapped or worse. But one time I was doing a sermon, and from the pulpit, I saw a homeless looking type guy, pretty disheveled, probably, would be the stereotypical homeless looking guy. And he came and sat in the back pew, and I watched two families move away from him. From the pulpit, I pointed that out. And I was told that I shamed some really big givers or donors or tithers of the church. And I said, well, then you better fire me because I don't care about those tithes. That guy will never go back to a church again because how he was treated. If you just allow that, why didn't somebody go embrace him? If you saw them move away, which I know you did, because some of the elders were also ushers. If you saw that happen, why didn't you go sit with them? This was the meeting I was having. And I got my hand slapped pretty good for that because I was kind of deemed defiant. Wasn't taking direction, but I wasn't wrong. If you can't walk into a church and feel love there, what are you doing? Somebody said this once upon a time. Some churches have like a moat. You remember in the old days with a castle where they had like a big ditch around it and there was alligators in it. They have a drawbridge. They have barbed wire fences. But if you can get in through that, we're here to love you. No, the church should be the most welcoming place on the planet. And it even goes with this next passage. This is the last passage I'm going to read. It's James 5:16. It says, therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. Now, that's a great passage, and it really kind of says what the religious people wanted to say, except the problem is I'm not going to confess my sins to you if you're going to share it, gossip, judge me, whatever. This passage is to say the early church was about, hey, let's all get together. And just picture it like you're this early church, you meet this Jesus guy, he dies, you think, oh, that guy wasn't who I thought he was. And then all of a sudden you see him a few days later, he's alive again. He gives you the last sermons telling you guys to all go make disciples. They probably sat around very transparent because they just sat with God who knew everything about them. Like the woman at the well, and we'll talk about that as we go. This woman was judged by everybody, and he came and said, yeah, I know you're kind of sleeping around a little bit, but here's some living water if you want it. I know, people say, well, he shamed her. No, he didn't, because she wasn't ashamed. She went and told everybody, you got to come and meet this guy who knew everything about me. She wouldn't have done that if he would have been the guy that knew everything about her and harshly judged her. He judged her according to the righteousness of his godliness, but he did it with grace
and compassion.
And that's where we're at. So that's a hint of what this podcast is about. I don't want to spend any more time on that. And just kind of let you soak that in. And if you're still not sure, we're going to read a couple of stories here. These are just stories from my past that I want to kind of just start the podcast with. And I want you to kind of just absorb what we want to do here. I had to get that Bible passage stuff out of the way, again, non-Christians, because this is where we believe your grace is going to come from. If that's going to bother you, I just politely ask that you maybe, put it aside, meditate on it. And if you still can't get it out of your head, tune back in.
Exactly.
Same with the religious Christians. If this podcast is already driving you crazy, turn it off, man. Go find some hyper-religious podcast where you can all judge us, including me. Yes, I'm a pastor who fell from grace. Not just fell on my face, hurt thousands of people from my behavior. Now, most of you would say I'm not qualified to even talk about Jesus anymore. And you know what? Maybe you're right. That's why I'm not in formal ministry anymore. Maybe I wasn't cut out for it anyway. I don't know, but I'm still going to tell people about Jesus because
Exactly.
I
Yes.
can't not tell people about Jesus because of where he's brought me from. So if Jesus found some demoniac in a cemetery who delivered him from his evil, I'm sure he can deliver me, and therefore I'm going to go tell everybody like that guy did. So let's kind of get to this story. I'm going to call this the story of Gina, and I changed the name.
Okay.
Because you never know who's going to stumble upon this and call me and say, why did you tell my story on your new podcast? So this is Gina, right? Now, Gina, she was a wife and a mother of 2 young children. Very, very, very classy, pretty woman who dressed to the nines all the time. Like one of those people that you right away go like, I want to go mess up your hair. Those people, their hair is never out of place. Like so much so that like it always draws attention. Like this woman could walk in a sweatsuit to the church like on a Tuesday to ask for a brochure. And even in her sweatsuit, it was perfectly pressed and whatever. One of those people, but very much somebody who went to our church. But as a therapist, I always said, why is she trying so hard to be perfect? But she one day decided to make an appointment with me. And I have to be honest, Melissa, I was like, I'm about ready to find out what the truth is because this woman is way too perfect to even need an appointment with the pastor who's also a therapist, right? And so in this church I was at, there was other pastors, but everybody made appointments with me because they knew I was also a therapist. And so it just made the logical sense. And so I remember I was very busy. I didn't have any time for any more clients, but when she wanted an appointment, I'm like, just for my own curiosity, I need to make this appointment. So I did. She came to me right away and said she was suicidal. And I was like, whoa, nobody would know that by her appearance. Nobody. And then she confessed that she had been actually caught having an affair with the man that she had met at the gym. And so my mind was like, okay, so it wasn't that you were suicidal the whole time trying to be perfect. Are you just suicidal now? Or were you always suicidal and now you were acting out of your depression, trying to, feel better? So I'm like intrigued, right? Her husband had been alerted to the affair by a neighbor. So the neighbor was like, hey, dude, when you leave, this other dude comes over. And so her husband had actually literally walked in on her having this affair. Now, this woman was having an affair with a guy that was societally, socioeconomically well beneath her. Now, nobody's beneath anybody, but I mean, these were very successful, kind of upper middle class, borderline wealthy people. And this dude is just some gym guy with like a part-time job type guy. So she had been shunned by everybody because she had the perfect husband, the perfect life. So her family had shunned her. His family shunned her, of course.
Yeah.
She had actually been asked by somebody in our staff to find a different church. I didn't know any of this. And oh my gosh, was I pissed.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, was I pissed. So I said, well, now that I think about it, I haven't really seen you in a few weeks, but I saw him and your kids. But I mean, it's, like, it's not like, where's the perfect hair lady? I just see her husband. Maybe she's working in the ministry. It's a large, mega church. So there's, sometimes people work in the nursery, whatever. So you just don't know. But then it clicked in my head. So here's the part where I still get mad. She had found a new church just up the road, not far from us, this very wealthy neighborhood that we all lived in. There were several different churches. And of course, the new pastor called her a sinner. 1,000,000 times, she said, during the 2 times she met with him. And that was her exact words. He must have called me a sinner 1,000,000 times, and I only met with him twice. Her husband was going to take her to custody, he had said, and get full custody, or you're going to take her to court and the divorce and get full custody of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so she was living with her sister, but her sister, of course, was extremely judgmental of her too. Like, you can stay here, sis, but what the heck is wrong with you? This guy's you had a great husband. Look at the life you had. Now, what are you going to do? Now you're living in my basement. It was a horrible situation,
Gosh.
right?
Yeah.
So she was actively suicidal, right? And this is where it gets super crazy. I had not checked my voicemails. So when I left the session, I had actually had a voicemail from a psych nurse at the hospital who was saying that I'm referring this person to you that used to go to your church. But she says she wants to speak to you. And so just let me know. I did look you up and you still have your license, but just let me know if you could take the referral because I have to do follow-ups because we let a suicidal person off of their 72-hour hold.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, so I didn't know this till after because I'm just into it with her, right? So just to kind of make the long story short, we worked on her shame.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, when I say shame, I want you to think about yourself in that situation. I've been cheated on. I've committed the adultery on my side too. So I can empathize, but sometimes we don't want to think that way. We just want to be like, oh, get that out of the way. But I want you listening to really stop and think what it's like that your life is in a situation to where on paper everything's good, but there's something going on underneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get enamored by some, I guess, kind of buff.
Or just any attention or any that extra.
Yeah.
They can say, or just listening to them or just kind of being a friend.
And that's how it happens, right?
Yeah.
So he's some semi-attractive buff guy, but he sees her at the same time every day. They start talking, and that's how it starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that there's some spiritual warfare going involved here. I don't want to get too far down that path for the non-Christians that are listening,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a force behind it that's kind of orchestrating this thing. But just imagine that you love your husband. He's not hitting you. You just made a decision to cheat on him because of something going on inside of you that has nothing to do with the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're almost hoping maybe when you're caught, like, can you imagine? Because my previous spouse knows I had an affair, but she didn't catch me in the act. So what's that feeling like to be like,
Mm-hmm.
he just walked in the door, like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Is he going to beat this guy up? The guy leaves. Do you guys yell in the living room? Like, I try to put myself there when I'm talking to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how do you feel? And she goes, I don't know if shame is even an adequate word. I feel like the worst person in the world. And what I wanted to do, and I can remember this as plain as day, which is why I picked this story. Because I've had so many of these conversations, but some of them just stick out.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to do was say, well, that like 50% of people probably cheat, right? I don't know what the number is. I know 50% have affairs. 50% get divorces, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of them are affairs, but it's got to be like 40%. I don't know. Somebody can look that up and let us know. But I used to know those statistics when I was actively a therapist, but I don't know what they are now. But I knew that if I said that, I was just trying to rescue her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to rescue anybody, but I want you to be able to tell your story. So I cried with her. Long story short, that's all I can do. I cried with her. And we worked on that shame for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And now, when we were kind of getting close to the end, she had actually found an amazing job because she had gone to school and had all kinds of experience, but she was like a stay-at-home mom because her husband made a ton of money. So she had actually went and found a job. She had got her own place. She was making a lot of money. So she was proud of herself and those types of things. And during the process, there was some sort of hearing about custody. And the judge was like, just because somebody has an affair doesn't mean I'm going to take their kids.
I know. They just.
So they was a 50-50. And it's like in Colorado where this was, there's not like custody, it's parenting time. They don't say like somebody has full custody anymore. They're like somebody has 80% custody and the other person has 20. So this was a 50-50 thing. So she had her kids half the time. They were young, so forgiving her wasn't hard for them, but she had to let a lot of things go. But what we were able to help her with, and I did bring in another woman that I worked with in my ministry who was able to kind of do the day-to-days with her a little much, because when you're a pastor you have to have some boundaries and stuff like that. So they started buddying up and doing things together, that type of thing. So we were able to work a lot with her on the concept of grace and what it really means. And so we did tell her the story of the woman at the well. And this woman had had multiple adulterous situations, that type of thing. So when she was kind of working towards the end of this therapy, what she was able to do was just kind of say, if God doesn't hold this against me, at some point I have to stop holding it against me.
Yeah.
You can never go back, right? You can't go back to your husband and mend it and fix it. You just have to say, like, that's something that is. And, a lot of therapists and a lot of people will say, well, that's something you live with the rest of your life. And I guess there's truth to that in the literal sense.
Right.
But when grace covers something, every time it tries to pop up, you have to teach yourself what God says. When the Bible says things like, I will remove your sins from as far as the east is from the west. That's how far, so when you go to God and you say, like, hey, God, I want to talk to you about that sin again. God says, what sin? You're the one that keeps bringing it up.
Onto it. Yeah.
The enemy is the one that keeps bringing it up, which kind of leads me to this second story I want to tell. And I told this on another podcast. So if you've tuned in before, bear with me. I worked with this woman, Diana. She was a woman in her mid 60s, maybe early 60s when I first met her. She came to me because she had got a DUI for some prescription medication. So she wasn't drinking and driving. She had no idea that you could, but she was actually taking one of her grandkids to school. And on the way home kind of passed out at the wheel and crashed into a car. The cops asked her, are you under the influence of any alcohol or drugs? And she goes, well, the only thing I do is just take my prescription pills. Well, she showed him the bottle and she literally said right on the bottle, it says, do not operate a motor vehicle. So she came to me for private counseling because she was very wealthy. So most people who do DUI counseling do it in groups, but she was able to pay me individually. So we did it like that way. But what it ended up being a blessing, because we were able to kind of just do a little more in depth than just the workbook and all the things that you do when you get a typical DUI, right? But pretty soon the counseling developed into the reason she's had all these problems her whole life is because she's been carrying this shame. So she tells this story. And I'm like, this story has affected me for life. And Melissa will tell you that when she left therapy, she gifted me this beautiful picture. It's like of a fish, and it says, God will make you a fisher of men. And so it's literally above my bed. But and maybe I'll post this I'll post a picture of it if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. I'll show you a picture of this, so you know that I'm not just making the story up, I guess. But as a little girl, before she went to school, she stole her mom's pearls, and these were not fake pearls. This was a Southern belle who had found her way to Colorado. She stole her mom's pearls because she wanted to wear them. Well, she asked the teacher for permission to go to the bathroom because she wanted to go look at the pearls. She was a young girl, very young, elementary school, right? Well, what happened is she was playing with the pearls and the string broke, and they fell all over the bathroom. So they were on the floor, just ding, 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 like you would hear the pearls, like in any movie where somebody drops the pearls. So in the process of her crawling under the stalls to get these pearls, the teacher walked in. And the teacher said, what is wrong with you, you dirty little piggy?
Oh my gosh, no way.
What kind of self-respecting girl would be crawling around on the floor by the toilets? which maybe in hindsight is a logical thing because the teacher has no idea what's
What
happening,
happened?
right?
Yeah.
But what it did is it literally brought her shame. So the teacher grabbed her, drug her by the arm all the way down to the principal's office. And the teacher, as they were waiting for the principal, said something to the effect of, "You better hope you don't get the spanking machine." Now, she's been called a little piggy,
Oh, that's horrible.
and then she's terrified of the spanking machine.
Machine.
So this may be kind of humorous because, like, a spanking machine, and literally that's probably what I thought in the moment because I can remember afterwards thinking that. But this is 50 some odd years later, and this woman still actually believed that there was a spanking machine. So let's just cut to the chase. Just imagine this woman has been living with this shame of these pearls and being called a piggy in her beautiful little dress that,
Oh
this
my
little Southern
gosh,
belle
that's
was
so
in,
mean.
and that she was terrified she was going to get the spanking machine. Then the principal shamed her. Then they called her parents. Plus, she got in trouble for the pearls
For the
being
pearls.
broken.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are expensive pearls. These people had money. So it sounds crazy, Melissa, but for 50 years, 50 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
this woman has been carrying this. And when I simply just let her tell the story and then kind of through just being there with her, crying with her, and for those of you, yes, I
Aw.
will cry. I I'll also beat you up in the parking lot. Like I'm not afraid of my tears. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my mistakes in life have come from me trying to hold back my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't do that anymore. If I need to cry with people, I will. If I need to laugh with them, I will.
Mm-hmm.
If we need to get angry together, we will, but I don't hide from my emotions. So yes, I cried with her.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to this place where I said, Diana, you do know there was no spanking machine, right? And it sounds funny. Like I've told this story dozens of times and people crack up, but she literally thought there was because it was part of her shame.
It was exactly. Yeah.
It was
That's what I was
part of
gonna
this
say.
horrific moment in her life
Mm-hmm.
that had literally caused her to always try to be perfect, to always try to be this perfect Southern belle with the perfect life, make sure her
Mm-hmm.
husband's lunch every day, that whole type thing,
Mm-hmm.
while the whole time still thinking to herself that she's this dirty piggy who crawled around on the floor
Oh.
and deserved a spanking machine.
Mm-hmm.
And when she, like, literally just picture yourself watching this woman's eyes pop open, lean back on the couch, lean forward, not know what to say, her words wouldn't form. There wasn't a spanking machine. That was just something that, yes, exactly. That's something a lady said. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe there was some sort of weird spanking machine in the South back then, but I've never seen one. I never heard of one.
Well, she's probably never been in trouble to know that there's
Exactly.
not a spanking machine or anything. Because if she was a good student,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know. But if you were a knucklehead,
Yeah. They were like,
there's a
there was a
spanking machine.
paddle. I got that a
Right.
couple times. But
Yeah.
here's the deal. I tell these two stories because this is what shame does.
Mm-hmm.
It can literally affect you for a lifetime. Whereas in Diana's story, she was trying so hard for all these years to mask this shame that she eventually developed an addiction to prescription pain pills because the anti-anxiety medication and the antidepressant medication wasn't enough. She got
Mm-hmm.
an injury, watch this, where she fell down the stairs right after her husband left for a work trip with a broken neck and laid at the bottom of the stairs for 3 days until her husband came home. No food, no water, going to the bathroom on herself
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom of the stairs, unable to move. And of course, he came home, found her, took her to the hospital, but she healed. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
small little thing. But the pills were the first thing in
Yeah.
decades that had made her feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this perfect Christian woman
Wow.
that was carrying the shame. Now, I kind of told those stories because they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but they still have the same result.
Mm-hmm.
Shame, guilt, feeling like you have some secret that you need to get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
that will eat you alive if you're not careful. And that's what we want to do here on this podcast. Now, we know that we will never be able to fully tell our story if we feel judged. we will always tell some variation of it. So even if you get busted, you know what I think of, Melissa? We watch a lot of true crime shows. Melissa and I, we have this joke because we saw it on some video somewhere. We're like, we have to watch some sort of horror movie or some sort of horrific true crime thing to go to sleep. And it said, if you do that, you're a psychopath. I'm like, well, at least I found the right woman, because that's what we watch. But like, we watched this program called Evil Lives Here, where they just tell these stories of these people that went through these horrific things because their spouse or their son or whatever was some crazy evil killer or something. And so we watch these things where people tell their stories, but we watch these stories where like these people get interrogated, right? And the cops try to make it to where like, well, if you just tell us what happened, we'll try to help you. That is not the place to tell your story. And I'm not trying to advocate for you to get out of trouble, but just get a lawyer, right? But because of the same principle as to why you wouldn't tell your full story there, that's the same principle that applies with how you would tell your story in any circle. Some of you have a mom that if you told her your story, she would judge you, shame you, or make it about her, or, you know, or point out how she always knew you were going to be a bad kid. As a matter of fact, most of the time, your mom is probably not the person you should be telling your because that's her job, was to raise you and go and so on and so forth. Who would you tell the story to? Most, if not almost every circumstance or every situation, you're going to just tell some variation of it. You're going to doctor it up a little bit or minimize it to continue to be accepted. So even if you have a best friend in the world, and they say, well, what happened? Well, did you sleep with that guy? Is your husband going to know? No, I didn't sleep with him, but I did kiss him. No, you slept with him, but you saw the way she looked at you, and you wanted to stop in its tracks before you went too far and lost your best friend. So in reality, we may be the best place for you to tell your story. We don't know you, and we're not going to judge you. The only thing we said in the beginning is we just want some understanding that if you're not ready to be repentant, we're not going to put you on the air, because we don't want to make this sacred ground not sacred. We want this to be a place where people are on their knees saying, I got to get this out. And then we want to lead you to that grace that we talked about earlier. Now, I want you just real quick, and we referenced this before, but you know, when we think of this story of the woman at the well in the Bible, it's in John 4:1-41. You know, I want you to read that. I want you to, even if you're a non-Christian, and you know, it used to be, well, if you don't have a Bible, just look it up on your phone. Just go to John 4 and just read verse 1-41. And this woman was unlovable. So much so that this woman would go get water in the heat of the day. Remember, this is the Middle East where it's hot, right? You watch these soldiers that go fight in the Middle East, it's like 120 degrees. You know, this
7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, this is where these people lived. And she was a woman who was so much shamed by her people that she wouldn't go get water when the other women went. She'd go by herself because she didn't want to hear it. And Jesus found her. And you know, for those of you religious Christians, he did call out her behavior. He did say, you know, because he said, go get your husband. Well, I don't have a husband. You're right. You don't have a husband. You've had 5 husbands.
I mean, he's telling the truth. It's not, he's not.
He is. But I think what Christians hear when they read that passage, like, you know, because when you read the Bible, you read it in your own head, right? Your own internal voice. I think what they hear is, of course you don't have a damn husband, woman. You got 5 husbands, you whore.
Yeah.
Instead, I want you to see it like what it really is, which is, yes, you don't have a husband. You've had 5 husbands. The one you're with is not your husband. But if you really want relief from this, I can give you living water, not this water you're pulling here, water that will transform you. And so much so were his words that she not only accepted Jesus and became a follower of Jesus because we're saved by our faith, right? She had to go tell everybody. That shame of, I'm going to go get water when nobody's looking, came, I'm going to go tell all these people. That shame was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Come and listen to this dude. He told me everything about me. And in my mind, I read it like, you guys think you all know about me? He knew everything about me and he didn't judge me.
Mm-hmm.
Come and listen to him. That's how I want you to see this podcast. And basically, when you're reading that story, he didn't do it with shame, he did it with love. Christians have to remember that if we come at sinners with authority of instead of the gospel, we're going to do more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some of you that
Yeah,
just eats you like,
exactly.
well, you got to call out sin. You got to call out sin. Okay. First of all, the person probably knows that they're in sin. But if you call it out, do you have to be like, that's sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you be like, hey, listen, in your internal thing you got going on that that was the wrong thing to do. I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get you to a place where you understand that there's forgiveness for you,
Mm-hmm.
that there's redemption, there's restoration, that there is literally freedom from this
Mm-hmm.
on the other side. And I'm here for you, right? How do we get there? Well, we can't do it in and of ourselves because we're judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I say I'm not going to judge you, you might say something that my instinct is to be like, what? My second thought, however, is going to be, well, you've probably done worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go from there. So we're not perfect. Melissa and I aren't, we didn't find some level of Christianity where we've arrived, because we're not going to be a Pharisee to the Pharisees.
Right.
And only the Christians will know what that means, but that's who I said it for.
Mm-hmm.
We're just normal people who make mistakes still, who just want to be in communion with other people and really introduce them to the real Jesus, the real gospel message. Because if the gospel means good news, you can't say that the gospel means good news and then it's full of judgment and hatred towards people.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so what we want to do is just kind of conclude with this. We love you. We don't know you. We've never met you, but we love you. And I'm not saying I'm such a good person, and Melissa's not saying she's such a good person that we just love you. We love you because God tells us to love you. We love you because it says that we should do unto others as you would want done to yourself. And so when I've made mistakes, and I've made big ones, you know what I found, Melissa, is some of the people that literally verbalize to me, no matter what, dude, no matter what, bro, I got your back. Wait till you make a big mistake. You will find out who really meant that or not. And then I had people who I was probably horrible to at one time or another, but were somehow an acquaintance that had my back ferociously. And it's only in those moments where you find out who really believes this grace stuff and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And so what we are saying is that we want to be a safe place for you to share your story. So hopefully that makes sense what we want to do here.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering if this is for you, I told you a story of Gina. We want to hear your story in your words, not ours. And so again, you can do that by writing to us, reach out to us if you want to do an interview. We'd love to hear from you. If you just want prayer, we're cool with that.
Oh yeah,
for sure. You may never make it to the podcast. We mean what we say. We will give you as much time as we have, as often as we can give it to you. But more importantly, if we're not the people to help you, we want to guide you to the right people, because you may only feel like you got one or two chances to tell somebody your story, and then you may lock it up for life and then live with that rot inside you.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. For somebody like me who was on this pedestal of ministry and then you fall on your face and it becomes public, the amount of shame that you carry is huge, because you didn't just hurt yourself and your family. You hurt so many people who trusted you and believed in you or whatever. And I didn't have a place like this. I had to get into my relationship with this God. And I know Melissa and I have talked about some of the stuff in her past, and as we go, you might hear glimpses of that. But we have both been in places where we just had to go to God and say, like, hey, man, I need you because I don't have anybody else. And one of the things that God has always put on my heart is you have to give grace to these unlovable people because you know what it's like to be them. I've even written a book called Grace for the Unlovable that I've never published. I've never edited it. I just wrote it all out. And maybe one of these days I'll put it together and try to get it published. I'm the Christian horror novel author, so this would be a drastic turn from that. But we may get to that down the road because that's how much this has been weighing on me for a long time. So we'll just close with this. We appreciate you giving us your time tonight. We want you to really consider this. Give it a try. Reach out to us. Your conversation may be, I'm not sure if I want this to be on the air. Are you guys really for real?
Yeah.
Let us have a conversation with you and answer any questions you have before we jump to an interview or before we jump to your letter or however. Whatever makes you comfortable.
Feel
That's
safe.
what we want to do. Okay. So any closing thoughts, Melissa? Anything that you want to just throw in there as we go?
I'm excited, just ready to see what we can do with this podcast and, spread the word and just, if we help one person, then that's one person that's not suffering anymore.
It's worth our time.
Worth our time.
It's worth our time to try to keep all these dogs at our feet quiet and keep them from barking, keeping the new puppy from chewing the microphone cords.
So they're a little stressed right now.
It's worth it for us. So again, we just thank you for your time. Remember that this podcast is written, produced, and narrated by us, Anthony and Melissa Corelli. If you want to find out more about us and all that we do, you can always go to thestruggleseries.com. That's a website that has all the books, all the deliverance ministry stuff, but it'll also have tabs for this podcast as well. If you do want to reach out to us for the umpteenth time tonight, GracefortheUnlovable@gmail.com. This program is copyright The Struggle LLC. Shout out to Todd Kazinka at Todd K Voiceovers, continues to do great work for all of our podcasts. So again, thanks for tuning in. May God bless you and bring you peace.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend. We will see you next time.